Paris, the most beautiful city in the world. But what if I told you that just beneath its charm was a place filled with danger, disease, and death? In the 1700s, Paris was not the romantic city you imagine today. It was loud, it was crowded, and in many places, it smelled so bad people covered their faces just to walk the streets. There were no clean sidewalks, no modern sewage, no streetlights in most areas. At night, the city changed. Dark alleys turned into hiding places. Crime rose, and people disappeared without a trace. Yet, this same city was also the center of power. Kings ruled from grand palaces. Artists created beauty that still inspires the world today. And ideas were spreading, ideas that would soon change history forever. So how could one city hold both beauty and chaos? What was it really like to walk through Paris in the 1700s? Today, we go back in time. Not to the palaces first, but to the streets. Because the real story of Paris starts there. It is early morning in Paris. A thin fog hangs over the city. The sun is rising, but the streets are already alive. You step onto a narrow road. It is not paved like today. It is uneven, muddy, and filled with waste. People throw trash out of windows, sometimes without even looking below. You hear voices. Vendors shout. Carts roll over stones. Horses pass close by. The air feels heavy. Smoke from fires mixes with the smell of food. And something worse. There is no real sewage system. Waste flows through open gutters in the streets. When it rains, everything spreads. You try to walk carefully, but there is no clean path. Above you, buildings lean inward. Some are so close, neighbors can talk from window to window. Clothes hang outside. Water drips down, and from somewhere, you hear coughing. Disease moves fast here. Too many people, too little space. Yet, life continues. Markets are busy. Bread is sold fresh each morning. People argue over prices. Children run between crowds. You pass a baker. The smell is warm, comforting. But just steps away, a beggar sits in silence. This is Paris, a city of contrast. Rich and poor, side by side. Beauty and filth. In the same street, and somewhere beyond these crowded roads, a very different world exists. A world of gold, power, and control. But before we go there, you need to understand something. This city is changing, and not everyone feels safe anymore. Now look closer, because something feels off. Paris is growing fast, too fast. More people arrive every day. Farmers leave the countryside. Workers search for food, for money, for survival. But the city cannot keep up. Food is becoming expensive. Bread, the most basic need, is harder to afford. And when bread becomes scarce, people begin to ask questions. Why is there not enough? Who controls the supply? And why do the rich never seem to suffer? You hear whispers in the streets. Some blame the weather, others blame merchants, but many blame the crown. Because far from these crowded streets, the king lives in comfort. At the Palace of Versailles, life is very different. There are gardens, fountains, endless food. Music fills the halls, and nobles wear silk and gold. But here in Paris, people struggle to survive. This gap is growing wider. And with it, something dangerous begins to rise. Anger. At first it is quiet. Small complaints, private conversations. But slowly the tone changes. Writers begin to speak. Thinkers question power. New ideas spread, from cafes to homes. Ideas about freedom, about fairness, about rights. Ideas that challenge everything. But here is the mystery. How did a city filled with fear and poverty become the center of a revolution? And who was truly responsible? The answer is not simple. Because beneath the noise of Paris, a storm is building. And most people don't see it yet. The tension does not explode all at once. It builds slowly. In the cafes of Paris, people gather, not just to eat, but to talk. They speak in low voices. They read banned books. They question things that were never questioned before. Writers like Voltaire and Rousseau spread new ideas. Ideas about equality, about power belonging to the people, not just the king. At first, it feels harmless. Just words, just thoughts. But words can change everything. Meanwhile, life in the streets gets worse. Winters grow colder. Harvests fail. Bread prices rise again. You see longer lines at bakeries. More arguments. More anger. A mother holds her child but cannot afford food. A worker shouts at a merchant. A crowd begins to form. These moments are small, but they happen more often. Then something else begins to change. Soldiers appear, not in war, but in the city. They stand near important buildings. They watch the crowds. Why? What are they preparing for? No one says it clearly, but people feel it. Fear spreads. Rumors move faster than truth. Some say the king is planning to crush the people. Others say the city is on the edge of collapse. And then, a question begins to echo through Paris. What happens if the people stop obeying? That question changes everything, because once it is asked, it cannot be taken back. July 14th, 1789. The air in Paris feels different. Heavy, unstable. Crowds gather in the streets. Not just dozens, but thousands. People are no longer whispering. They are shouting. They want bread. They want answers. But more than anything, they want power. Then word spreads. Weapons are needed. The crowd begins to move. Through narrow streets, over bridges, past markets and homes. They head toward a fortress, the Bastille. A massive stone prison, tall walls, thick gates. To many, it is a symbol of fear. A place where the king can lock people away without trial. But today, it becomes something else. A target. The crowd surrounds it. Tension rises. Some try to talk. Others demand entry. Then, a shot is fired. No one knows who fired first. But it does not matter. Chaos begins. Gunfire echoes. Smoke fills the air. People fall. Yet the crowd does not run. It pushes forward. Hours pass. The gates finally break. The Bastille falls. And in that moment, everything changes. This is no longer just anger. This is revolution. But here is the question. Did they truly know what they had just started? The fall of the Bastille becomes a symbol. But the truth is more complex. Inside the prison, there were only 7 prisoners. Not hundreds, not thousands. The fortress was not full. It was almost empty. So why did it matter so much? Because the Bastille was never just a prison. It was a message. For years, it stood as a sign of royal power, a place where people could vanish without explanation. And when it fell, that fear fell with it. But historians say the real cause was deeper. France was in crisis. The government was in debt. Wars had drained money. Taxes were unfair. The poor paid the most. The rich paid very little. Food shortages made everything worse. So step by step, the pressure built. Let's break it down clearly. First, bad harvests reduced food supply. Less food, higher prices. Second, wages did not rise. People earned the same but paid more. Third, anger spread. People talked, ideas spread, trust collapsed. And finally, one spark, the Bastille. It was not the beginning, it was the breaking point. And once that line was crossed, there was no going back. But even then, no one knew how far things would go. Because revolutions do not stop where people expect. Paris will never be the same again. After the Bastille falls, the city changes fast. The streets you walked before now feel different. Crowds grow larger, voices grow louder, and fear spreads in every direction. The king begins to lose control. The people begin to take it. But revolutions are not clean. They are not simple. Soon, suspicion takes over. Neighbors question neighbors. Accusations rise. And the same streets once filled with markets become places of judgment. The guillotine appears. Sharp, silent, final. What began as a fight for fairness turns into something darker. Power shifts again and again. And many who demanded change do not survive to see it. So what was Paris in the 1700s? It was beauty and suffering, hope and fear, dreams and destruction. A city where ideas were born and lives were lost because of them. And if you stood in those streets on that first morning we saw, would you have noticed the signs? Would you have felt the tension rising? Or would it have seemed like just another day in a city on the edge of history? Because sometimes, the biggest changes in the world begin quietly, in crowded streets, in whispered words, in places just like this.